So hello and a very warm welcome to this in-depth weekly session of the Anantam IAS. So as you might have seen, 2 lectures have already been done by Gaurav sir and Bhav sir respectively for geography and polity. And I am here with the subject topic of art and culture and science and tech. And in this, I have taken up 5 topics, that is the Mughal painting, the UNESCO Creative City Network, Phool Walon ki Sair, a festival that is attributed to Delhi as a region. Then India's heaviest communication satellite has been launched, so that becomes important. And lastly, the solid state batteries. So these are the 5 topics that I have taken up for today's discussion. On that note, let's start with the very first topic. So the first topic is regarding that a particular prize is given for the auction of the Mughal miniature painting. So basically what happened is that there was an auction that was done, and in that a painting of the cheetahs, this painting that you could see, a painting, just a minute, a painting of the cheetahs that you see attributed to Akbar's rule and his very famous artist, that is Basavan, that has fetched a record auction price for any classical Indian or Islamic painting as such. So in that context, this topic of Mughal paintings that becomes important from the perspective of art and culture in the mains and in the prelims, history as such and art and culture. And to make you realize the importance of this particular topic, you could see this question related to the manuscripts of the Mughal emperor that has already been asked in the UPSC prelims, and these are certain questions that I have picked up from the history optional that shows that Mughal painting are the themes that UPSC does focus upon, and in that context you need to do both the factual and the analytical aspect of this particular topic. So let's start with the discussion. So Mughal painting, obviously we all know that it must have started in the Mughal era. Mughal era means after Babur's victory in the first battle of Panipat in 1526. So the beginning was in 1526 during the time of Babur, but Babur's tenure was very short, right? Of around just 4 years, and in that 4 years he was fighting wars continuously, one or the other. So he was not someone who is attributed with the actual foundation of the Mughal painting tradition, but still he was someone who said that he patronized briefly an artist called Behzat. It was actually during the time of Humayun. Humayun was exiled because of the loss that he suffered, and for that period he had to go to what? Persia. Then he returned again. So when he returned, he brought with him 2 artists whose name we are going to see in that particular topic of Humayun's. And this is where the Mughal painting tradition actually started. And for that reason, it is said that the Mughal painting was a unique blend of Persian tradition, the Hindu culture, and lastly the local culture that was prevalent, the regional cultures. So it was a unique blend of all these 3 things. And what were the themes of it, what were the design aspect of it, that we are going to see in the future. Okay, so this was something that was related to the origin of the Mughal painting. Now let's see something from the mains dimension, because in this year if you see the salient features of Harappan architecture has been asked. So you never know, salient features of Mughal paintings could be asked in the mains, maybe next year. So let's see some of the important features of Mughal paintings. The first one is that it was mainly miniature in nature. Although during the time of Jahangir we will see that the miniature paintings started getting replaced by the portrait paintings, but it was largely miniature in nature. What are miniature paintings? These were the paintings that are largely attributed to the medieval era as such, And in this, what used to happen is that small detailed artworks were done. Small detailed artworks were done in a very small space. And for that reason, there was a unique representation of human figure in a side frame. That is, in this particular side frame, the human figures were represented and not in the portrait mode. So this was the feature of the miniature Mughal painting in terms of its miniature wala feature. Then the second feature you could see is the diversity. What actually is this diversity wala part? That is the diversity of the themes. So Mughal paintings are never attributed or never regarded to be based on a single theme, that is the religious or maybe royal or something like that. It contained variety of themes, from the court scenes to the hunting scenes to some religious text like Hamzanam and all, to the portraits, individual portraits of the kings as such. So there were diversity of themes that were considered or that were made in the Mughal paintings. So this is one feature. Then the third feature is this particular technique that is attributed to the era of Akbar, the technique of foreshortening. What exactly is this technique of foreshortening? The technique is that the objects or the figures are depicted in such a way that they appear to be nearer and smaller. Now, actually what happens is that when a thing comes nearer, it is something that gets enlarged in the view. But this was the technique that was used to keep the object nearer but still smaller in size. That is in terms of its view. So, and this is attributed mainly to Akbar's era, this technique. Then realism and naturalism. Realism and naturalism is that whatever was being depicted, maybe flora, fauna or the human figure, it was basically meant that they should be depicted in as real form as possible. That is, there should not be any imagination or the idealism in the depiction of those particular objects or the figures. But this is something that is restricted till the time of Jahangir, because we will see that in Shah Jahan's time, the European influence started taking place in the Mughal paintings, and that is where you see the imaginary or the idealization aspect getting reflected in the Mughal paintings. But still, largely realism and naturalism were one of the key features of the Mughal paintings. Then rich materials in the terms that the quality of paper that was being used, then ornamental works of gold, then the pigments that were being made from minerals, plants and all, they were of very rich and fine quality. So that is one feature. Then another feature is that the Mughal paintings were largely aristocratic and secular. That is, it was not the common people. That were depicted, but rather the royal depiction was there. And secular in the sense that there was not very much predominance of some religious theme as such. So these are some of the features of the Mughal paintings. So if a question is asked in the 10 marker, you could simply write 6 good points. Okay. Now let's see certain prelims type points in this. That is ruler wise. Under Babur, just remember the artist Behzad. Baki, there is not much contribution of Babur in terms of the Mughal painting tradition. So this is one fact that you need to remember for Babur. Then comes Humayun, who actually laid the foundation of Mughal painting tradition when he returned from Persia. So who were the two famous artists that he brought from Persia? Mir, Sayyid Ali and Abdul Samad. And since the beginning is with the Persian artist, obviously the Persian influence will be there. And it got blended with the Indian tradition. Okay. And a very famous painting is attributed to Humayun's era, that is Khamsa of Nizami. So in the prelims, you could have a question, this particular term may be given and it may be asked as like for example this, if you see this PYQ question I will show you. In this question it has been asked, who among the following Mughal emperors shifted the emphasis from illustrated manuscripts to album and individual portrait? We will see the answer of this also, है ना, as a matter of point. But this is something that could be asked too, कि this Khamsa of Nizami painting, it is attributed to which Mughal emperor or ruler? So the answer will be Humayun. So the answer will be Humayun. So this is related to the Humayun. Then let's move to the next king, that is Akbar, who arrived with the victory in the second battle of Panipat after defeating him. So Akbar is someone who is said to have transformed the Mughal painting tradition, from the popular art to royal art, form, popular art to royal art form. Okay? And one major step that he took for this particular reason was, that is the establishment of Tasveer Khana. The establishment of Tasveer Khana. And what used to happen in the Tasveer Khana? That is, the painters, they were employed on salary basis. है ना? That is, it became a royal profession as such, है ना, under the patronage of Akbar. So the painters started getting employed on a salary basis and they were encouraged to develop their own unique style, and that is why you will see many famous painters coming up in the era of Akbar. One was Basavan that we saw, whose painting got auctioned for a record price, है ना? So this was one contribution of Akbar. Then that technique that we saw, foreshortening wala technique, that is also attributed to the era of Akbar, foreshortening technique, and the depiction of three-dimensional figures. So if these two characteristics are given, and if a question is there to which Mughal emperor is it associated with, then it will be Akbar as such. Okay? So next point in Akbar, it will be that, just a minute. Okay. So next will be that, ki just the artist name you remember, Daswant, some famous ones, Basavan, because he has been directly mentioned in the context that we have seen, then Kesu and some other. ठीक. So this is Akbar wala part. But was Akbar's tenure the peak of Mughal painting tradition? Was it? No, it was not. It was actually Jahangir. Jahangir's tenure. So for confusing you, UPSC can give you all the details about the development of Mughal painting tradition under Akbar and then ask you, was it the peak of Mughal painting tradition? So don't get confused, it was not. It was actually under Jahangir that Mughal painting tradition reached its peak. And one basic change that Jahangir brought was focus on naturism increased. That is, the depiction of flora and fauna gained prominence. Why? Because Jahangir himself was an expert painter. He himself was an expert painter. So he took very keen interest in the development of painting tradition. Then another thing was that the technique of decorated margins started in the Mughal painting. The decorated margins. Three-dimensional figures and foreshortening, Akbar. Decorated margins, Jahangir. Decorated margins, Jahangir. And there was a shift towards portrait paintings. That is why you will see many individual portraits of Jahangir and some other people, they have been done under the tenure of Jahangir. So portrait painting tradition started. Then some other points under Jahangir. Just let me write. Just. So under Jahangir, one thing you can write is that the individual paintings that were there, they started getting combined into albums. Which were called what? Murakas. Which were called as Murakas. Just a minute, I will highlight it. Which were called as Murakas. So this term could be asked in the exam. And related to what it is. Okay, so keep a note of it. And I think a hint has already been given in UPSC. If you see this particular question, so this is the question: who among the following Mughal emperors shifted the emphasis from illustrated manuscripts to album and individual portrait? So what is the answer? Jahangir. Okay. That term could now be asked in the next. So keep a note of this term. Okay. Murakas. Then there were some other points, that is, there was improvement in the brushwork and use of subtle colors. And who was the most famous artist of Jahangir era? It was Mansoor. Under Akbar we saw Daswant, Basavan, Kesu and all. Okay. So in this, if you now connect, then you will see that it was actually during Jahangir's time that the Europeans started entering the Mughals court, right? You must have heard the British envoy who came to this Jahangir's court and all. So that is why you see the beginning of European influence on Mughal painting happened. The European influence on Mughal painting started. During the time of whom? Jahangir. So please keep a note of it. Now let's see next one. Next ruler, that is Shah Jahan. So the European influence started during the time of Jahangir, but it was during the time of Shah Jahan that it gained prominence. So there was a lot of European influence during Shah Jahan's era on the Mughal painting, so that the realism of the painting started getting replaced by idealism and imagination of the Victorian school or the European school? Victorian school or the European school? This was one thing. And that is where he started encouraging certain European school tradition, that is the pencil art forms. Pencil art forms started. And one very famous painting attributed to Shah Jahan's era is Padshahnama. 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 So this is something that you need to remember for Shah Jahan. Then next, we all know the very famous Aurangzeb, who succeeded Shah Jahan by eliminating Dara Shikoh, his brother. So under Aurangzeb, there was a steep decline in the Mughal painting tradition because Aurangzeb had no interest or very less interest in this particular art forms. So for that particular reason, what happened was that the artists who were employed or patronized by the then Mughal rulers, the previous Mughal rulers, they started migrating to other places to find work, and that is where you see the development of regional style of painting. The development of regional style of painting. That is, so many different styles in the Rajasthan school, the Bikaner, then Bundi, Kota, and all such styles started developing. Then you had Pahadi school of painting developing. Okay, so this was one of those reasons for that. Then after Aurangzeb, there was a short revival. There was a short revival of the Mughal painting tradition under Muhammad Shah. Muhammad Shah, we all know, he is also known as Rangila. And as a matter of his characteristic, he was very keen in, had very keen interest in the art forms, and painting was one such art form. So there was a short revival in the painting tradition, and he had patronized two very famous artists. One was Nidhamal and the other was Chitaraman. Nidhamal and Chitaraman, these two artists. So this is all related to the Mughal painting tradition. So as a matter of prelims, you know so many facts now, and in the mains, if the features are asked or related to the Mughal painting tradition, you can write 6 to 7 points now. Okay. Now let's move to the next topic. So the next topic, if you see, it is related to the news that Lucknow has now been included in the UNESCO Creative City Network. UNESCO Creative City Network, and under which category of gastronomy? That is for its particular cuisine. We all know that Lucknow is famous for its dishes. Lucknow is famous for its dishes. So, and what are those dishes? Biryani, kebab, and all those things. And in this context, it becomes important from the perspective of, again, art and culture wala part. Art and culture wala part. Art and culture wala part. And you already see that the intangible cultural heritage list of UNESCO has been asked by UPSC. So Creative City Network is also that could be asked in this year or maybe next year. So on that note, let's start with the discussion. So which are the prelim centric points that we need to know? Let's see. So when was it started? It was started in 2004 by UNESCO, headquartered in Paris, France, this particular category. And what was the objective? That there are many cities in the world that are using creativity, for sustainable urban development. So why not bring them in alignment under one category so that they could exchange the best practices and learn from the best practices of each other? So objective was this. Now, sustainable urban development, which SDG goal focuses upon sustainable urban development? It is the SDG 11. So if the question in the prelim says that the UNESCO Creative City Network encourages the achievement of sustainable development goal, then that will be a correct statement. That will be a correct statement. ठीक है. Then let's see the categories. Which are the categories? So the categories are, one to you already know. Wait, I will write it on another slide. So the categories are gastronomy. One is Lucknow. One is Lucknow, our own city. Then there is category of media, media arts, and the very famous city of Tel Aviv. It is included in this. Then there is a category of design. There is a category of design. And which are the two cities? I mean, there are many cities, but two very famous cities. One is Singapore. Some of you might have been there. And Shanghai also. Shanghai also. Then there is a category of film. So which city from India will go into this category? Obviously, our own Mumbai. Our own Mumbai. Then some other categories. Category of like folk arts and crafts. Here we have two beautiful cities of India, that is Jaipur and Srinagar. Jaipur and Srinagar. Then you have the category of music. Again, two beautiful cities of India in this, that is Chennai and Varanasi. Chennai and Varanasi. And one latest addition of category is architecture. Please make a note of it that architecture as a category has also been included in this. So I have covered the categories part and I have mentioned you the Indian cities that are part under those particular categories. One addition you can do is that in the gastronomy part you also have Hyderabad as a city. So Lucknow is not the first one from India in that particular category. Okay. And sustainable development I have written. Why? Because this particular initiative supports sustainable development. So this is all that you need to know for this particular topic, UNESCO Creative City Network. Now let's move to the third topic, that is Phool Walon ki Sair. So obviously it is not something that has been new, that has been in news for good context. Why? Because this year, after its continuity, it has been cancelled for some reason, but that reason is not important for us. What is important for us is that it is important from the perspective of art and culture again. And this is a PYQ where UPSC has asked the detail of some festivals. So maybe in this year's prelims paper you could have this festival. I want you all to write the answer of this PYQ in the comment section. Okay, so let's see certain prelims pointers for this Phool Walon ki Sair. See, from the mains perspective, what will happen is that you could use this festival as one point in your answer to depict the social life, to show the religious policy of that particular ruler. But these topics mainly become important from the prelims. That is why let's see certain prelims pointer. Origin is what? It originated in 1811. And 1811 Mughal emperor was Akbar the Second. Akbar the Second from 1806 to 1837. That very famous fact that he was the one who gave the title of Raja to Ram Mohan Roy. And then at that time Begum Mumtaz Mahal, she started this particular tradition of offering the floral chadar that you see in this image, that is offered. So she was the one who started, and she offered this floral chadar at two places. One was the Yog Maya temple and the other was the Dargah of Khwaja Bakhtiyar Kaki. Now there is a very famous monument in India that is attributed to or associated with Khwaja Bakhtiyar Kaki. Please write in the comment section if you know. Okay. So this was the origin part. What is the location? Is it a pan-India festival? No, it is not. It is something that is concentrated in the Delhi region. And it is an annual festival. The symbolism was religious harmony in terms of Hindu-Muslim unity, and it got banned by British when? 1942. Because British left no stone unturned to increase the animosity between Hindu and Muslims, and this was one such step taken by British, that they banned this particular festival that was there for unity of the two communities. But again it was revived in the post-independence era by whom? Jawaharlal Nehru, as a matter of secular revivalism. Okay. So these are certain prelims pointers that you need to remember for this particular topic. Now let's move to the science wala part. So the first topic in the science we have is that ISRO has launched GSAT-7R, that is the heaviest communication satellite of India. And the one more fact is that it has been indigenously developed, particularly associated with Indian Navy. That is, it is going to assist Indian Navy as such. So this topic becomes quite important from the perspective of science and tech portion, and also the security topic of GS paper 3. And as you could see, in this very year you had this question regarding consider the following space missions, and these 3 space missions were given, so you never know, this could be asked. Okay? So on that note, let's start with this topic. So what is the weight of this particular satellite? Around 4400. So is it the heaviest satellite of India? No, it is not. It is the heaviest communication satellite of India. But the heaviest satellite of India is what? GSAT-11. So please remember this minute fact, it is the heaviest communication satellite and not satellite in general of India. And it has succeeded with satellite GSAT-7. What is the launch vehicle that has been used? That is LVM-3, which is the the highest quality launch vehicle that India has currently. So in the question it could be given that PSLV was used, maybe. So no, this will be wrong. It is the launch vehicle 3 that has been used, LVM-3. And in which orbit it has been placed? Geosynchronous transfer orbit. Why? Why only geosynchronous transfer orbit? What is the orbital period of GTO? It is 24 hours. That is in sync with the Earth's timeline. And the work life of the satellite is the highest in the geosynchronous orbit, and it is the lowest in the lower Earth orbit. Why? Because in the lower Earth orbit, the pressure of the gravity is highest, and therefore the shelf life degrades or the work life degrades quickly in the lower Earth orbit, because you require more fuel and power there. So that is why it is actually the geosynchronous orbit that is mainly used for the communication satellite. Okay. Then what are the benefits? Benefits is obviously, if it is for the Indian Navy, it will improve the telecommunication service of the Indian Navy, and we have seen that during the recent time of Operation Sindoor, how important these space-based communication technologies become, because now it's not only the land warfare that is happening, it is actually the space warfare, and that is why it will have a huge implication on the capabilities of Indian Navy. So in that regard, it will also increase what? the capacity, enhance the capacity of maritime domain awareness of Indian Navy, maritime domain awareness of Indian Navy. And the future implications of this successful launch is that India is obviously planning the Gaganyaan mission and then the installation of Bharat Antariksh Station. So if these precursor operations become successful, then they give a boost for those particular future missions. Why? Because they will be very heavy lifting kind of missions that will be. So these will act as the trial stages for those two missions. So that will be the future implication. So this is all you need to remember for this particular thing. Now let's see the last topic of today, that is the solid state batteries. So this is the news that is in the context of Japan as such, which will also be impacting India obviously. So it is in the context that we obviously know that electric vehicles are trending now, because of the climate and all those reasons. And in like many other fields, it is actually China that is leading in this sector also, like many other sectors, which is not going down well with Japan, because we all know that Japan has conventionally been one of the leading countries in the automobile sector. So in that context, to maintain its own edge in this particular field, Japan is exploring certain battery technology that could give Japan the edge in EV sector. And what is the technology? It is the solid state batteries. And why this becomes important? Again, from the perspective of science and technology in paper 3. And you already have thermoelectric, radioisotope thermoelectric generators that had been asked in 2023. So solid state battery becomes a very probable topic for the prelims. Please give the answer of this PYQ in the comment section. So let's see certain features and detail about the solid state battery. So solid state battery, basically it means ki the electrolyte that is used in the batteries. For example, if you see this diagram, I will show you. Okay, so I will draw it. So basically what happens is that the anode wala part, cathode wala part, connection flow, and this is the electrolyte section. So in the conventional lithium ion batteries, you have liquid electrolyte. But in the solid state batteries, this electrolyte becomes solid in nature. So that is why solid state batteries. So what are the features of this? That is, the first feature is the enhanced safety. So in enhanced safety, why? Because we have already seen that the liquid electrolyte, they are highly flammable. You must have come across a lot of news about catching of fire in the electric two-wheelers of Ola and some other companies as such when they were recalled. So that is one problem that is there with the liquid electrolyte that is used in the lithium ion batteries, and that is where the safety feature comes with the solid state batteries. That is, they are not that flammable as such. The second feature is the higher energy density. So why higher energy density in this? Because the solid state battery uses lithium metal anode. And what anode does the lithium ion battery use? It uses the graphite anode. And this lithium metal anode, it is said to be more energy efficient, and that is why since it is used in the solid state batteries, it makes those batteries more energy efficient. So please don't get confused in the lithium ion batteries it is the lithium metal anode. No, it is the graphite anode that is used in the lithium ion batteries, and the lithium metal anode is used in the solid state batteries. Okay? Then comes the longer cycle life of this particular solid state batteries. There is a problem of lithium dendrites that is there in what? The lithium ion batteries. And these lithium dendrites are something that are responsible for short circuits. And it is something that gets avoided with the solid electrolyte that is present in the solid state batteries, and that is why it tends to have a longer cycle life. Then the fourth point is about the stability in terms of the thermostability. The solid state batteries, they could be operated or they could function well under various set of temperatures. And India, as a geography, we know in the geographical context, India is not a country that is known for its uniform temperature across from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. There is a lot of variation in the temperature, and you are not going to change your vehicle while moving from one state to another, obviously. So you need certain technologies that could suit the geographical variability of India, and that is where the solid state batteries, they become operable under various temperatures of lower temperatures also and the higher temperatures also, that is cold and warm temperatures both, so higher stability. Then comes the charging aspect. We obviously know that during the part of the charging, there is a lot of degradation that takes place in the batteries, but because of the high ionic conductivity in the solid state batteries, there is less degradation and faster charging in the solid state batteries. So these are some of the features that you need to remember, and these features will then become an advantage, which I have given you in the tabular format that you can read. That is electrolyte, I have told you, solid, and the other two, the lithium ion and lead acid batteries, they are liquid in nature. Safety is highest in this, energy density is highest in this, cycle life, it has a very high potential, as I told you, and charging speed is ultra fast, high ionic conductivity. So this table you could remember, it could be asked in a comparison format in the prelims part, or maybe in the mains also you could be asked to compare the two batteries. So this is all for today. So we'll meet you tomorrow again. Till then, take care. Bye. All the best.